Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to discuss the major astrology of May 2026. And this is actually a blue moon month. That means the calendar month begins with a full moon and ends with a full moon, which is a rather rare occurrence in our Gregorian calendar. So May 1st is the Scorpio Full Moon at 11 degrees, which begins the energetics of this month, taking us into a deeper, more truthful look at what we are ready to face and evolve. It is also Beltane, which correlates to the cross-quarter celebrations of the year. Beltane is essentially a marking point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, and also signals that we are now in the blooming, blossoming, abundance energy cycle of the year, and that beautifully aligns with Taurus energies. May is essentially a time to look at what are you ready to invest in and bring it to life? Where are you ready to embody more of the physical world experiences that ground you, center you, and provide you with a practical foundation for living your life? May is the energetics of strong Taurus and Gemini energies, and both of those are quite prominent this month, which we will dive into and look at in today's show. On a more personal note, I always love the month of May, and in fact, I started my business, this business, 15 years ago this month. I have been building and creating this platform for 15 years now, including offering this podcast for 15 years. I have wrote and published 12 books, created over 50 online programs, hosted 12 in-person events, retreats, and workshops and counting, and still have a lot more to create and build going ahead. So I wanted to share this because this is a time of year to really lock in and commit to what you want in your life. That directly pertains to the Sun in Taurus values, where you are ready to show up and develop something that beautifully aligns with you, your purpose, your gifts, your style, your desires. This is the energy that supports it every year. And so I was also laughing at, okay, here I am. We're talking about Taurus energies for 15 years and counting. But what I love about astrology is that we can always approach it and see everything from a new lens and new perspective through these cycles. So as May begins, you might be realizing what matters to you now that you really want to commit to. And that's important when we look at how the past few months have been about moving us into new beginning points, preparing us to begin something fresh and newly aligned that is beautifully connected to who you are now. These are personal decisions. These are things that you are perhaps moving through and deciding that maybe not everyone knows about, but you do, and it matters to you because it pertains to what you want to experience in this life. And so this is a time here in May to honor that, to feel strong and confident in what you're choosing for yourself, and to look at what you can do to make it happen and make it real. When we have the Sun in an earth sign, as it's in Taurus now, there is work to be done. And that work can be joyful. It can be invigorating, creative, and satisfying. That's part of what we're moving into over the next number of years, is how we define work, which is how we use our energy every day to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. And so what are you choosing that gives you a sense of satisfaction? And I realize that there are things in our lives that we just have to keep doing, right? You maybe have to keep going to a certain job or responsibility for now. And maybe you love it, maybe your heart isn't fully in it, but whatever the case may be, you still have choices in how to use your energy in other areas of your life that bring about greater satisfaction and reward. So the Sun in Taurus is asking you to look at how are you investing your energy into matters that pay off for you, that give you life, that bring about more for you to enjoy about your journey, because we do have choices around how we invest our time, energy, and attention. Now, the sun in Taurus is also bringing our attention to realistically assessing the new beginnings that inspired you or have been coming about since we had the very strong Aries stellium only a few short weeks ago. Now, we still have a stellium of Aries energies in the sky as May begins, where we do have Neptune, Saturn, Mars, Mercury, and Chiron all in Aries. And in fact, the sun is the only planet in Taurus. And so that means there is support to move forward in a very concrete, clear way as that sun in Taurus is ready to get things done. This can be quite industrious and productive energy, especially with all of the fire sign energy. And of course, we're also in the year of the fire horse. So we are meant to be taking action towards what we want and to be determined in what you're moving towards, because now that sun in Taurus basically provides a filtering perspective of what you're doing that pays off, including the time involved, the financial energy that is required, the resources you need to bring together and use, as well as the boundaries of the day, of your time, and of your energy. So that sun in Taurus is asking you to be realistic in how you're directing your energy and to assess, is this really what I want? And if so, then let's keep going. Let's make it happen. Let's make it real. All the Aries energy is still strong at this time, and it could even feel like you are moving ahead at a faster rate or speed than you would typically prefer. And that's going to be one of the themes of May, is that it's going to feel energetically faster and that you aren't allowed to slow down as much as you want, meaning there's always something else or something next that you have to focus on and take care of. So the sun is in Taurus until May 20th this year, where it then moves into Gemini on May 20th at 8:36 p.m. And another theme in May is that we do have strong Gemini energies throughout the month, and I will get to that shortly. So getting back to how this blue moon month begins, it starts with the Scorpio full moon at 11 degrees of Scorpio in your chart. And this is where that moon will be big and bright, illuminating Scorpio themes and expressions, which includes fears, patterns, attachments, truths, desires, motivation, psychology, human behavior, vulnerability, and deeper emotional needs. The Scorpio full moon will eliminate what has been hidden, secretive, or done in the dark as it's brought to the forefront, and that big, bright full moon reveals what we didn't see or know before. This is when more mysteries can arise, more discoveries come forward, and more revelations occur, and we sense what is real and what is true. Scorpio is highly psychic, intuitive, and emotional. It is a very strong energy reader. Oh, you do not lie to the Scorpio energies, because there is a deeper sense of what is real and what is true. And what makes this particular Scorpio full moon even more potent is that both the sun and the moon are squaring Pluto in Aquarius at 5 degrees. Now, Pluto is influential throughout May because we're going to have Pluto stationing retrograde on May 6th. I'll get to that in just a moment, but Pluto is a part of the Scorpio full moon energetic imprint, which means we are being forced to evolve past a fear in order to get to the other side and to meet a new part of ourselves that is waiting for us in the future. This is a future timeline pressure point, and it's going to stir up and bring up anything you are still attached to, you haven't dealt with, or you haven't emotionally moved through that is ultimately holding you back. Now, that also relates to these new starts that are underway here in 2026 is that you could have felt quite energized, courageous, and ready to go to take something on, to create a new chapter, to work with the strong Aries energy that we've been talking about for a few months. But the Scorpio full moon is going to show you what you are clinging to that is an old fear. It's perhaps directly attached or related to previous life experiences, events, connections, relationships that left an imprint on you. And part of the message at this time is that the square to Pluto in Aquarius is reminding you that you're not who you were. You have grown, changed, or evolved, and this is a time to look at something with a fresh perspective and to honor how you are more empowered now and that you are different now, and those same energy frequencies will not repeat because of how you've changed. And so whatever starts off the month could be showing you in a very fascinating way an old fear you have that still seems loud or prominent in your current reality, but you're meant to move past it, and you may do so with greater speed than you even expect. And so this full moon does relate to that Pluto stationing retrograde, which happens on May 6th at 11:34 a.m. with Pluto at 5 degrees of Aquarius in 30 minutes. So Pluto stations retrograde, which is essentially the energetic perspective of coming to a standstill. However, it's important to note that when the outer planets are changing direction, at least that's our perception here from Earth, as they don't actually change direction, but their influence is felt often 2 to 3 weeks before and after the station retrograde occurs. So we're already feeling and sensing that Pluto is activating future timelines for us that are arriving, but in order to move into those frequencies, there are still parts of ourselves that we are emotionally working through that need to be transformed and transmuted. Now, as I say this, I'm seeing the visual of the violet flame of transmutation up in the crown chakra. Now that is, of course, a violet flame, so a beautiful lavender purple dancing color of energy. And this is where you might feel that you want to direct any heaviness, burdens, or emotional energies into that light-filled violet flame of transmutation. This allows the energy to lighten up as well as be transmuted and removed from your physical energy vessel. This also could feel quite empowering as you are being set free to move into new experiences and new dreams for yourself that you're ready for. I feel like this Pluto stationing retrograde is significant because it's ensuring that we are in powerful alignment with our highest timeline. And I feel that this particular Pluto retrograde has a lot of deep changes that we're going to be evolving through, but I'm seeing it at this lightning speed of progress because there's a recognition that we have more skills and a higher consciousness now to deal with whatever is arising from those plutonic depths and to handle them. In other words, to move through them with a sense of greater self-awareness and greater self-empowerment. So we're also going to feel that this Pluto stationing retrograde on May 6th could be setting you free from something you've already been intensely working through. Aquarius wants to take us forward. It is a very progressive, creative energy that opens up new expanded frequencies that I'm seeing are very pure. There's a sense of fast-moving electrical light codes here that are meant to invigorate you. But in order to do so, this Pluto in Aquarius has to get through and bust us out of any lower consciousness fears that have kept us locked into lower timelines. Now, I feel this as the lower 3D energies, and by that I mean those that are more dense, controlling, power hungry, emotionally rigid, unhealed, lacking self-awareness, and with no desire to grow, transform, or evolve. And so what it feels like is that this Pluto is bringing our attention to any parts of ourselves that are still locked in to those old versions of self. But this is going to be a month. In fact, it's going to be a number of months of greater consciousness expansion that opens you up to new dreams and potentials for your life. And so Pluto in Aquarius is dismantling and essentially destroying those lower timelines that no longer serve you so that you can now act with a new life force and frequency that propels you forward. And it can feel even rigid, like there's been rigid expectations of what you had to do or what was expected of you in this life, of certain roles you had to fulfill or things that were maybe even holding you back and limiting you. Pluto in Aquarius wants you to challenge those, wants you to really ask yourself, does this serve me? Is this my truth? Is this the truth I'm here to embody and powerfully live from at this time in my journey? And this is where you could have some fast moving insights into what is limiting you or holding you back from a soul purpose, soul mission, or higher path that is gaining in energy, that's calling you forward as well. And so this is where we can struggle with ourselves and wonder, can I handle this? Is this really what I want to claim? And I think that part of this Pluto retrograde in Aquarius journey is going to be showing us what needs to be redirected, deconstructed, and transformed in order to reach and move towards that higher timeline. I mean, there's a lot of work here that's going on in the ethers and in the multidimensional energy field that we don't always feel or tap into. The multidimensional energy field holds multiple frequencies and energy codes that we can't see with the human eye. Our eyes are not designed to see all frequencies. I know we're all waiting on the night vision upgrade, right? Like, when can we get that in our humanness? But that is similar to being able to see the multidimensional frequencies. And that's what we are moving towards and how we are evolving. And I believe that this Pluto in Aquarius is beautifully assisting us in that evolution. Of course, based on your free will and what you desire to experience. But we're going to have access to more multidimensional gifts and skills. And this particular Pluto retrograde in Aquarius might be something that opens those abilities up for you. Pluto will be retrograde May 6th until October 16th. This is a typical phase for Pluto, where it is retrograde for half the year. And because the station retrograde happens to coincide with the Scorpio Full Moon, there will be greater intensity around what is changing, as well as what is leaving the planet. There will be many energies, experiences, and let's call them levels of density that won't be able to exist on the planet as the overall energetic imprint shifts. And Pluto is associated with death and rebirth, that very deep, permanent evolutionary journey. And so that is something that will also be experienced as the month of May begins. Now, in May, we have Uranus now in Gemini, where it will stay until May 2033. Uranus was in Gemini in 2025 from July 7th until November 7th, went back into Taurus to finish up more of the breakthroughs that were needed. Now in Gemini, Uranus is fast moving. Uranus is the sky god who rules the sky and who is associated with lightning fast messages, electrical currents, disruptions, shocks, instant knowingness, extreme answers, big information revelations, new levels of communication, and so much more. If you listen to this podcast, you know we've been discussing these themes for a while now. But one thing that stands out really strongly here is that as Uranus moves into Gemini, the planet of awakenings and liberation is going to be conjunct Sedna at 0 degrees of Gemini and stirring away more of Sedna's myths, stories, and hidden wisdom that has been previously lost. Uranus and Sedna, both at 0 degrees of Gemini, is going to unleash more research, data, details, wisdom, skills, and teachings that were previously inaccessible. This conjunction is rare, and this conjunction is going to reveal more of the true stories of planet Earth. Now, I have separate podcast episodes for you discussing Sedna and her myth. She is revered as an Inuit goddess who's associated with very deep soul-destined transformation. Sedna experienced very extreme sacrifice, betrayal, and abandonment through her family, and she was required to embark on her own path in order to become more empowered, healed, and to learn from those emotional depths. Sedna is therefore associated with crisis points, extreme developments that shift one's life and trajectory, harsh experiences. She's also connected with ancestors, the lineage you carry, the myths, stories, and narratives that are passed down or not that show how your ancestors have evolved and how they lived. It also is the energetic awakening to more human experiences and what was really felt that wasn't perhaps kept, that wasn't perhaps powerfully shared. I'm thinking of it as how there are dominant voices who will share stories and provide a narrative, but that is often a one-sided narrative. And through the years, decades, and centuries, there are stories that are lost, and there are stories that are not passed down, that are forgotten. Sedna holds those stories. Sedna knows the truth of what was experienced on certain lands or by certain groups of people. I also feel that she's deeply connected to maternal stories, women, the feminine experience, the maternal experience that maybe was discounted or lost along the way. And so with this conjunction of Uranus and Sedna at 0 degrees of Gemini, we are going to have new understandings that arise that shift the narratives, tell a fuller story, reveal what was forgotten or hidden. And by the way, this energy will last for a number of years. Uranus and Sedna were both at 0 degrees of Gemini back in 2025. They have their exact conjunction on May 24th, and this energy moves forward. So they also are going to move to 1 degree of Gemini together, and then it begins a new synodic cycle in narratives, ancient wisdom, and storytelling. And again, the Sedna energy not only requires us to face what we didn't want to face previously, but there is a level of transcendence that's associated with Sedna, where we have to zoom out and have a bigger timeline perspective in order to handle some of the intensity and emotionality that she can bring up. So this is going to be a big part of the month of May, where there's going to be an important beginning point into how we understand the human experience. This can certainly bring in more galactic history and galactic stories, more about other beings who have been on the planet, who are still here, more revelations around what we call disclosure. This is absolutely the energy of disclosure, by the way, is this Uranus conjunct Sedna in Gemini. Although even what is publicly disclosed can be convoluted and not the full story. So May is ushering us into more of a galactic perspective of Earth's journey in the solar system and through the galaxy. And so here come more crazy out of the blue tales that will seem bizarre, crazy, and odd, but they can absolutely be valid and true, as this is a time when our human consciousness can more readily understand it and believe it. This will be shocking people's belief systems, as that's part of what Uranus in Gemini is going to be doing. That's because Gemini is in the opposite sign from Sagittarius. Sagittarius is your ideology, philosophies, and belief systems. Gemini asks questions. Gemini says, okay, how do you know that? Or what formed your opinion around that? What's your understanding of that? How did you arrive at that perspective? And so Uranus and Gemini plus Sedna and Gemini are asking more questions that can be very uncomfortable, that challenges people's not only belief systems, but what they thought was true about human history and our planet. So again, this energy will unfold for a few years. Now, why is that? Because of how slowly Sedna moves. Sedna moves maybe 1 degree a year. She has a very big orbit of 11,400 years to move through all 12 astrology signs. And so she spends about a full year at each degree point, if not longer. And because it takes her so long to complete time at each degree point, whatever she's involved in, especially with a synodic cycle to an outer planet, it is a new extended beginning point that takes longer to move through and understand. So this brings greater attention to the early Gemini degrees in your chart, as well as what is highlighted here in the month of May. And that's because we're also going to have the Sun enter Gemini and be conjunct both Uranus and Sedna this month, followed by Mercury moving in to Gemini. I will cover those energies more specifically in the Wednesday show, where we go through the weekly astrology of the week ahead. But this is just part of what is occurring here in May, is that yes, big Gemini energies means that not only is there a lot going on, but we're finding ourselves needing to catch up with all of the news, stimuli, data, stories, everything circulating around us that we're trying to grasp our minds around and understand. So the early degrees of Gemini in your chart are going to be highly active. And it could show you what you're ready to begin and start that you've been thinking of, that you've been contemplating. Now there is energy to move it forward, to put it into a conversation or map it out, plan it out, take that idea and do something with it, even if it's just opening up and sharing it with someone. The Gemini desire is to communicate, but also to give yourself time to think it through and understand, what am I choosing? What am I doing? Is this something I want? So you might find that your mind is very active and that it could be supportive to have some good conversations with people you trust to get it out of the head, especially if it's been too much spinning. And of course, the flip side of that is to be aware of gossip, fake news, false data, anything that's just trying to get your energy or attention for its own sake. That is something that we have to be monitoring and be ready to filter out, to step away from those kinds of people who think they're going to benefit in some capacity from gossip, behind the scenes, slander, insults, lies, and fake stories. None of that lasts. None of that's even logical, and it doesn't lead anywhere. And it also brings about some really hard consequences and some really bad developments. So with Uranus moving in to Gemini, we're also being asked to access our higher mind's wisdom and to be keen observers of what is logical, what makes sense, what stories come together and what stories come apart. I mean, sometimes it can just be a free comedy show filled with lies. So bring your tomatoes, because people who behave like that are not going to last in these higher energies, and with more and more people becoming more consciously aware of what is truth and what is not. It also gets really old. There's actually something that I've been experiencing, and I've already discussed it and defended myself 7 times in 3 years on this podcast. He has been paying people to not support me, paying people to not work with me, and putting up all of these energetic roadblocks in my life to prevent and postpone developments that would make me happy and that I'm meant to experience. So this is a very real demonstration of the frequency wars, the spiritual wars, the energetic tools that people use and that they think they're getting away with. I have been increasingly empowered during this experience, and I am very active in how I am handling it and processing it. And then there comes a point where you just allow the universe to take care of it, which it does, which it will. And that is another way that these energies in Gemini are going to be demonstrating logic, consciousness, and justice. Now, as we move to the middle of May, we have a Taurus New Moon at nearly 26 degrees of Taurus on May 16th. And I believe this is an important Taurus New Moon because this is occurring in the late degrees of Taurus where Uranus previously was, providing that roller coaster ride of changes for all of us. Now that Uranus is no longer in this area of your chart, there are new opportunities here to practically ground in to what you want to create and build. Similar to the message that I offered at the start of the podcast here, the Taurus New Moon is a reset where you acknowledge how you've changed, what has happened outside of your control, what you've had to simply figure out. You've had to be willing to move with the changes and step outside of a comfort zone, even if it's something you really didn't want to do. The Taurus energy doesn't want to budge at times. Now, the Taurus New Moon is a reset. It's allowing you to powerfully claim what matters to you now because of the changes that have unfolded, what you have learned, how you have grown, how you have permanently shifted in the late degrees of Taurus in your life. And this is a new moon that resets the foundation of your self-worth, self-value, and self-love. We'll be talking about it more, of course, as we get into the middle of May. But just know this is where finally, this area of your chart, again, late degrees of Taurus, you have an opportunity to ground in and root into something that really matters to you because of what you had to release and let go of. Sort of like whatever you had to clear out, wherever those eliminations were occurring and things were never stable or steady. Now you're stabilizing this part of your life in the middle of the month, and there are going to be new opportunities for blossoming, growth, and development here. Again, that's at 26 degrees of Taurus. Now, another big theme in May into June is that Chiron in Aries is in new territory at the very end of Aries, moving through 28 and 29 degrees of Aries for the first time. And so this means Chiron is bringing your attention to whatever is unresolved and unhealed in the Aries energies of your chart that now you're being guided to look at, heal, and powerfully change that baseline frequency. Chiron in Aries is also giving you more of the courage and strength to trust your Aries expressions, to be more independent or courageous, to do something on your own simply because you want it. This is where Chiron says, you are worthy of this simply because you're here. You do not need to ask permission. You do not need to compromise. You do not need to hold back who you are and what you desire to create. So Chiron moving through the final degrees of any astrology sign signifies mastery and culmination of what you've been healing since 2018. Yes, so this is a big deal. We'll be talking about this more, but Chiron in Aries has been deeply changing who we know ourselves to be, asking us to soften into our self-identity, to become more self-aware, of what resides below the surface. Chiron is an invitation into the deeper layers of your being, and I often see it as the 7 layers of the skin, where you can see and powerfully know that top layer of skin. But Chiron says go deeper and investigate what is below those first impressions or those immediate responses or reactions. What is at the heart of the energy here in yourself that maybe you are meeting and coming into contact with for the first time? The Chiron journey invites in vulnerability, asks you to be aware of your sensitivities and the beautiful gifts that can reside within you that maybe you rejected or pushed away, especially when you were younger or in certain situations or experiences where it wasn't celebrated or welcomed. This Chiron in Aries has been bringing up at a collective level the trauma, abuse, betrayal, manipulations, or rejections that were experienced earlier in life. Chiron in Aries brings you into your younger unconscious self and deepens your relationship with your I am identity. Essentially, Chiron is meant to be a healing remedy. It's meant to be an energy of greater self-confidence, self-love, self-acceptance because of what you've learned about yourself, because of whatever you have survived, healed, and powerfully shifted. Chiron will remain in Aries until the middle of June, where it then enters Taurus on June 19th and stays at 0 degrees of Taurus until September 17th, then returns to Aries September 17th until April 14th, 2027. And so this means we're in the final stages of healing these Aries energies and expressions that were previously hindered, damaged, abused, traumatized, or rejected. Chiron also signifies where you need support for moving through something. Chiron in Aries means that you don't have to go it alone, even though that is the de facto Aries approach. This is where you understand that it's okay to reach out to others and ask for their guidance, wisdom, and assistance. Chiron connects directly to everything in the healing arts, and perhaps you have been introduced to more modalities and energies that are good for you, that support your healing journey, that you can rely upon. Chiron also brings alive your own healing strengths. As you go deeper into what resides within you, you then open up to more of what you're capable of that you didn't know you could do. So there can be revelations here around new skill sets, new gifts, and new talents that are uniquely you, that can't be duplicated or can't be mimicked. All copycats fail because all copycats are deeply disconnected from their authenticity. Chiron in Aries is bringing you into more of your authentic nature, and that's how you'll rise. You will rise and be even more capable of anything you're doing because you've embraced those Chiron gifts. We'll be talking more about this as we move through May into June, but just to highlight, this is important here in the month of May as Chiron moves through new territory. And this is also going to change any self-limiting stories you've held. It will shift the narrative and your own relationship with yourself that could be quite eye-opening and beautifully self-loving. Now, the final energy I want to touch on here in May 2026 is how we end the blue moon month with the Sagittarius full moon at 10 degrees Sag on May 31st. The Sagittarius full moon is inspiring, expansive, and growth-oriented. There could be new adventures you're ready for next. There could be new realizations around those belief systems that I mentioned earlier in the show. There could be more that comes into your consciousness that excites you and gets you ready for your next great adventure or what you want to create and move into next. This is often a very buoyant dominant energy. And this particular Sagittarius full moon has stability because it directly trines Saturn in Aries. It's going to help grow and develop whatever you were beginning during Aries season. In fact, anything you are wanting to begin this year, the Sagittarius full moon is going to take it further as Saturn brings in stability, support, guidance, and strategy. So overall, there's a lot here at the end of May that's designed to keep us moving forward and to feel good about what we are ready to experience next in our lives. There's a hopefulness with this particular Sagittarius full moon. The sun and the moon in this chart are at 9 degrees 55 minutes, and they are moving away from their direct connections to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, and Uranus in Gemini. That means at the end of May, there were new sparks of life that are going to be opening up for us. There's going to be a lot more energy, excitement, direction, and movement at the end of May. And this could highlight where you are going next. Some very powerful visions can come through by the end of May, and you could sense this is real. This is what I am powerfully manifesting with the support from the cosmos that is divinely timed for 2026. So again, we will keep discussing that as we move through May, especially into the second half of May. And I will have these astrology chart videos for you on YouTube where I go through each lunar chart to dive into more of the specifics of the energy, as well as look at the technical and analytical side of each chart. It will be another fast moving month, which I think has been the norm here in 2026. But May is definitely going to feel like we are living at a faster speed of life. You might even be feeling some shifts and changes in your physical body that validate your own frequency change, meaning there could be things coming about that you're sensing. This is because of what I have healed or moved through, or this is how I feel different in myself, in my body, in my mind. I think that May is going to bring about some beautiful messages of confirmation of how far you've come, especially in perhaps a short amount of time. And so I certainly wish that for you, and I hope that is the case for how you move through this 5th month. As always, I'll be back with another podcast episode for you every Wednesday and Monday. Thank you so much for joining me for this show. I look forward to doing these episodes every week with the intention that they resonate with you, they support you, and they remind you you're not alone in these energies, that you are beautifully connected to the cosmos, that you are divinely aligned with what is going on here on our little green and blue marble of a planet, and I hope it supports you in whatever you are experiencing right now. So I hope to see you back here soon. Wishing you a beautiful month of May. Thank you as always, and have a beautiful day ahead.